My story really begins where life as I knew it basically ended, right? My parents got divorced when I was pretty young. And anybody who's ever been through a divorce, whether yourself personally or experienced it as a kid, or just know somebody who went through it, it just sucks, right? And that was no different for me. My parents' divorce was pretty tough on me and my sister, especially because it happened when we were so young. But part of the thing that made it really difficult for us too is that on my mom's side of the family, we had this cultural Catholicism, and on my dad's side of the family, they're not Catholic, they're non-denominational, and maybe some Southern Baptists in there as well. And so this kind of just confused me and my sister, right? So we saw these two different lifestyles, Catholicism on one hand and Protestant non-denominational on the other hand. But both sides of my family at the time, even though they claimed these, different faiths, they didn't really practice them to a very high degree, right? We were Christian by name, Catholic by name only. We could talk my mom out of going to mass on Sundays. Me and my sister, we didn't want to get confirmed. We didn't want to go to youth group or anything like that. But my mom, inspired by grace, she made us get confirmed by literally threatening us, saying we will not get a driver's license if we don't get confirmed. And so my sister and I are like, all right, let's get confirmed because we wanted driver's licenses, right? And then once my confirmation was done in high school, I was like, sweet, I'm out of here, I'm free, no more church stuff. And then my mom comes home one day and says, hey, signed you up for work camp. And I was just like, you did what? She's like, yeah, it's like a week-long church camp. We're gonna go to an impoverished community and help rebuild houses and stuff for a week. And I was like, Mom, I escaped. I was done. What did you do? And so I went to this work camp and surprisingly kind of met some other Catholics that were cool and weren't super awkward or weird or anything like that. And I became friends with them. But unfortunately at the same time, I was 16, I had a driver's license. My friends and I already started partying. We already started going out. We already started drinking. And I was just really confronted with these two very different friend groups, right, for the first time in my life. And at the same time, I started getting into really bad relationships with girls. And so this was kind of my story throughout high school, where I was partying on Fridays and Saturdays with one group of friends, and then my other group of friends, I was going to youth group. It got to a point where by my senior year, I was elected the president of the youth council at my church. But I was literally still going out and partying. And initially I had the excuse of I didn't realize these two were contradictory. I didn't realize these two lifestyles were opposed to one another, just based on my own ignorance. But after getting involved for a little bit, I eventually knew that these were non-complementary lifestyles. These contradicted each other. And unfortunately for me at the time, I was too entrapped in my own sin and to even want to get out, right? And the last straw was basically when I graduated high school. I went to college, went to university. In my first year of university, I just fell away from whatever faith I might have had. I partied, multiple times a week, was staying up till 2, 3, 4, 5 o'clock in the morning, going out, drinking, in a really bad relationships with a lot of different women. And I didn't go to mass. Why would I, right? I didn't want to. And I was never an atheist, right? So that's one thing I tell people. I was never an atheist. I was always Catholic, right? And eventually, after my first year of college passes, I moved home for the summer because all freshmen couldn't live on campus over the summer, and nothing different happened. It was basically just instead of partying with my college friends, I was partying with my old high school friends until one day. And it was one of those days in the summer when you're just bored, right? It's where you open the fridge and you make some bacon, not because you're hungry, but just because you have nothing else to do. And you scroll through TV. We didn't have Netflix back then, so there was nothing on TV, and I was just bored. And I was in my room and I found this stack of books on my bookshelf. So I started going through them, and this book stood out to me because I recognized that it actually wasn't my book. An old youth group friend of mine, his dad had let me borrow the book my senior year, and I was supposed to read it and give it back to him, and I never did. And the book was called Rediscover Catholicism by Matthew Kelly. And if you've ever read the book, it's a really good book. If you haven't read it, you should read it. But anyway, I started reading it, and it has a really good initial story, it has that hook. And I was casually reading it, it was a good book. And remember, I was never an atheist. I was not agnostic. I was Catholic, right? And eventually, maybe a week or so goes by, And I get to the point in chapter 6 where it's talking about being the best version of yourself and like what that means for you. And I started thinking about it. I was like, well, what does that mean to be the best version of yourself, right? And the thought kind of struck me, and I was thinking back to my youth group days. I was like, okay, it's like if I died like right now, it'd be like an auto into heaven, right? But then the scarier thought hit me. Is if I died like right now, like where would I be? And at that moment, it was a terrifying question because I knew, well, I didn't know, but the answer that came to my head was I have no idea. Because my entire life up to that point, I had claimed to know God, I claimed to be a Catholic, I claimed to know Jesus, yet all of my actions and words were contrary to that, right? And I remember this was like at night in my room, and it's like one of those bad Christian movies, where I fall to my knees and like I just start crying, like ugly girl tears, right? Like snot bubbles and everything. And you made my first genuine prayer. My prayer was, Lord, I'm sorry. I've been spitting in your face over and over again. And if you truly did live and die for me, like how could I not live for you? And so shortly after that, I found myself serving as a couple years with Net Ministries of Canada, which is amazing. It was an extremely formative experience. I was such a punk going into it, and I left a slightly less punk. And shortly after that, I pursued my undergrad and master's in theology and biblical theology, where I met my beautiful wife, Viva. And it was shortly after we got married. I was working for the Archdiocese of New York, and we were in New York pre-COVID. And when we got pregnant, we realized there'd be a few months where we wouldn't be able to, Viva wouldn't be able to go to work and potentially not want to go back to work after the baby was born. And New York's expensive. And we're like, well, what are we going to do? We'll need some extra income. And so my entire life, I was an athlete, right? My entire life, I played sports. My entire life, I worked out. My dad was a semi-professional beach volleyball player at one point. He literally played in some AVP tournaments. And my stepdad was just for fun, was a certified personal trainer. He didn't do it professionally. He just did it for fun. So I had a lot of really awesome male influence and from the physical aspects of the world. And my sister at the time was actually working at Orange Theory Fitness. And so I kind of looked into personal training. I was like, okay, I can do that on the side, kind of in my off time. And so I got certified to be a personal trainer, and I worked for a big box gym, like a classic big box gym. And I loved working with the people, but man, I hated working for a big corporation because it was all about money. It was all about making money, making sales. I felt like a used car salesman. If you're a used car salesman, I'm sorry, I'm not trying to offend you. It's what I felt like. And I just knew I couldn't do this long term. And a buddy of mine, Ben, and I, we were just talking one day, and we both had this kind of same idea where I was like, man, why isn't there a Catholic fitness company? Why isn't this a thing? And we're like, we don't know. We did some research and there wasn't really anything out there. And so let's just make it, right? Let's just do it. And let's have the point of it not just be for good workouts, technically excellent workouts, but technically excellent workouts and nutrition provided by authentic disciples of Jesus Christ to help people in their journey of faith, to help people come to find themselves through a sincere gift of self, right? Because, in my own conversion experience, deepening my faith, the theology of the body was a huge part, right? Because I struggled with all these visceral, corporeal sins for so long, understanding the true worth and dignity of myself as a human being and others was such an integral part. And so we decided to kind of merge the theology of the body with this approach to fitness and nutrition. And HyperFit was born. So now I am currently the full-time director of youth and young adult ministry at a parish here in Austin, Texas. But at the same time, I'm the co-founder and fitness director for HyperFit, and we're an online Catholic personal training company. And it's been great. It's been a ride. We're not even a year old yet, so we're pretty new. But yeah, so I just hope my story brings you hope. Maybe you know somebody who's totally fallen off the bandwagon. Maybe you yourself are struggling with various things. But know that the Holy Spirit is just waiting for you to recognize that He's already calling you, right? He's calling you to know and love Him. And that if you're searching right now for something to satisfy you, know that you will only find yourself in and through a sincere gift of self. You will only find yourself once you fully give of yourself over to the Lord. And if you're married or if you're discerning marriage, if you're dating, if you're engaged, know that you can't give what you don't have. So in marriage, we're called to fully give of ourselves, but we can't give what we don't have. So we have to strive for this self-mastery for the sake of self-gift. So that was me. My name is Chase Crouse. Thanks again, Yes Catholic, for having me on. God bless.